Welcome to another episode of Ask Swenk. On this episode, we're going to talk about the KPIs you need to know for your agency. Do you really need to have contracts, and what should be in your contracts for your agency, and how you stay up to date with all the latest technologies as so many things are changing.
I'm Jason Swenk, and I'm answering your questions. And this is Ask Swenk.
So, the first question of the week is from Susan, who asked, what KPIs does a digital agency need to measure? Great question. So, at the end of the day, it's all about cash flow. But with cash flow, you really want to make sure that your agency can operate for at least 3 months if nothing else came in. But what we did is we basically maintained an operating account and then also a savings account. That savings account was to back us up. So, if you don't have a line of credit or any of that, that could take over. And you should also get a line of credit, which would actually help you out as well. The other KPI outside of how much cash we have is knowing your expenses. So many agency owners and business owners don't know how much their expenses are monthly and how much is that nut that you actually have to maintain. The other one is how much revenue is in your pipeline that can possibly close with the percentages. So for example, let's say I had $1 million in my pipeline. And then out of that pipeline, it traditionally closed about 70%. And then you can also look at the numbers of when you're thinking about closing them. And then when we're looking at kind of generating leads, I always kind of looked at the KPIs of ABC. A means attract, okay? How many people am I attracting? How many people I'm getting their attention to on the website? B is how many leads am I building every day? And then C is how many of those leads are actually converting to opportunities? And so those are pretty much the KPIs. So just to recap, right? What's the pipeline that I have coming in? What's my expenses? How much cash flow? And then the ABCs. Those are the KPIs that we measured. Troy asked, you're pretty much on every channel. I've listened to your podcast, seen you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, your blog. How do you keep up with it all? So thanks. Troy, I'm always learning, and I treat this as a game. And I'm just almost like getting ready for a sporting event. And I'm always dedicating time to learning as well as implementing. Basically, how I break my weeks up is simple. Sunday nights, the only thing I do is get ready for this show and actually do this. And then Mondays are really all dedicated to discovery and actually learning something, okay? So I'm looking at the latest technologies. One of the best ways to actually see what apps are actually starting to rise to the top is go into the iPhone or the Android and look at the top ranked. And what you'll see is you'll start seeing trends. And so one of the things that I really started seeing in the past couple weeks, that's why I've gotten on Snapchat, and I'm going at it hard. If you haven't followed me on Snapchat, I'm gonna put something up right here, bing, right? Follow me here. But Snapchat is actually the #1 social network in the US in the App Store right now. It's ahead of Instagram, it's ahead of Facebook. The other thing that I started noticing is SoundCloud, right? So I have my podcast, I put it out on iTunes and all that kind of stuff. But SoundCloud's actually rising up. That's why I just put my stuff on SoundCloud. So if you go to SoundCloud.com/Jason Swenk, I'll put the link up somewhere around here or here. You can check it out because now the SoundCloud's going into cars. So I spend a whole day really dedicated toward technology. Or if you don't have a full day, dedicate an hour or 2 hours just looking at the App Store, looking at different technologies that people are using and just experimenting with it. That's how I kind of stay up with everything, and I'm always learning. And as soon as I think I figured something out, I know there's something always extra, right? When people get stagnant, kind of like Blockbuster, they got stagnant and they didn't go online as quick as Netflix, then they become irrelevant. And that's my biggest fear. I don't want to become irrelevant. Rory asked, I've been a freelancer for 8 years. I just didn't know any better. Plus, I knew nothing about building an agency. Don't worry, a lot of us are like that. And I'm just starting out, and I'm bringing on new clients. Are there any super critical things to include in the contract, or should we worry about the contracts? What we did in our contracts, you want a contract. You don't want to go into it without a contract. The first thing you really want to do is set the terms of the contract. both on kind of payment terms and how long it lasts. A lot of you are going for projects and then go into retainers, right? You don't want to have people be able to cancel right away. You want to have some kind of penalty clause in there, so then you can predict out your cash flow. Remember, going back to question 1. So you want to make sure that you have predictable revenue. Also, what will help out with cash flow is defining that, right? So we would always do 50% up front, halfway through the project quarter, or at a certain date, whichever comes first, and then the same at the end. And that just helped us out with cash flow. So we'd have the payment terms in there. We'd also have the disclaimers in there. We never want a client to come back to us and said, we guaranteed sales, because we can only guarantee leads, right? Or traffic to the website. We can never take care of what they're doing for, in their sales team, right? And so you want to be careful there. Also, you want to make sure that your liabilities is limited. So what we always put in our contracts is saying, hey, this project or our extent of our liability is only the max of this contract. So if someone paid you $100,000 or $10,000, that's the max liabilities that you could actually have. The other thing we would also describe in there is, kind of what we're responsible for and what they're responsible for. You never want that back and forth going, well, you said this, you said this. Well, no, it's in writing here. You want to have this. Now, at the end of the day, a contract's only as good as as much as you want to actually take and enforce it, right? So if a client says, we're not going to pay you, or, you screwed up and you need to do this, you got to be willing to take it the distance. There's a lot of other probably things that go into there. Talk about ownership, right? What we had in our contracts is saying, until you're paid in full, we own everything we develop for you. And then we'd also define, the framework tools that we used. That was our property as an agency. So you want to make sure you define all that. If you want to see more of that, I'll put a link in this video, or I'll put a link in the comments if you're listening to this podcast, to go download our proposal template. If you actually go to my homepage, jasonswenk.com, scroll down a little bit, you'll see where it says proposal template, and you can actually download that, and that comes with the agreement, so you can actually see what we use. So if you liked this episode, I want you to subscribe, whether you're on iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud or YouTube or on the website, wherever it is. And I also want you guys to comment below and let me know what you think. And if you have any questions for the next couple weeks, we want to hear them from you, and I want to start that dialogue with you. And also, we do these live on Facebook Live every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So I want you to join on Facebook Live. Just go to facebook.com/JasonSwenk, and you'll see everything that we're doing. All right, till next time.